topic of this screencast is the colonies, and our question is, what were the political and economic systems that shaped life in the early American colonies? The four essential questions we'll be answering. Write these on a sheet of paper, answer them in complete sentences using this screencast, and then turn them in. They're a required homework assignment for this week. Four questions are, why did people come to the colonies? Where were the earliest colonies located and why? How did settlers organize their governments in the colonies? And how were the colonies and mother countries economically connected? So let's start answering these questions. Our first question was, why did settlers come to America? The journey across the Atlantic Ocean is very dangerous and very long. Taking a ship could take up to 3 months. Why would someone decide to undertake such a risky journey? It was not safe at all. So why would someone do it? One reason is to make money. Because of all the forests, rivers, mountains, the New World filled people's imaginations as a land where a fortune would be easily made. So here you can see like a picture of colonial money. You can see that one of the earliest companies that was formed to settle was all about making money. Another reason people came was for religious freedom. So Quakers, Catholics, Puritans, Jews. Because America is over 1,000 miles away from Europe, people in different religious sects or groups immigrated to America in search of a place where they could practice the religion of their choice without fear or violence. Also, some groups, especially like the Puritans, they really focused on trying to convert the Native American population to Christianity. But certainly the freedom to worship how you wanted was not available in Europe, and this brand new land offered possibly a chance to worship whatever God or not worship whatever God you want. And finally, one of the biggest reasons is just to start a new life. For many people, the idea of a new beginning was just what they needed. People who might be afraid of the law, people who might have difficult lives at home, maybe living in poverty, or no future prospects, bad jobs, whatever. Their old lives seemed to have no chance of moving forward. So moving many thousands of miles might have been dangerous and risky, but it seemed like it was probably worth it. The first vocabulary to know for sure is colony. A colony is a group of people who left their native country and formed a settlement in a new place, but who are governed still by the parent or mother country. So in the example of the United States, the colonies of New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia were all founded by English people or English companies. So that meant that even though they operated somewhat independently, they were still the responsibility of England. So a lot of their money, a lot of the things that they were growing or building in their colonies was shipped back to England. And the most important thing we need to remember is that the governments that made the biggest decisions for the lives of the colonists was ultimately the king and his parliament back in England. So again, you have a mother country, which is England, and the colonies, which are like the little kids. And so the little kids have some freedom, but ultimately it's the mother country, England, who says what to do. The earliest European settlements were on the coast of the ocean or on rivers. And the reason for this is most of the people, not most of the people, the only way to get to America was by ship. There were no planes back then, and there are no roads from Europe to America. So if you wanted to communicate, if you wanted to trade, and if you wanted new people to come to your colony, you needed your colony to be able to be accessed by the water. So you can see in this map, all the pink areas are the areas where there are settlements. Alright, and you'll notice that they're either all along the coast, like up here on Cape Cod in Massachusetts and down Connecticut, and then up the Hudson River all the way up to Fort Orange, which is now Albany, and then down here is water, and here's the colonies of Virginia. All of them are on the coasts, and that's because that's the way people communicated and traded. So the very first permanent English colony in the United States was Jamestown. This was in the colony of Virginia. It was founded in 1607. It was created by the Virginia Company. And when you see that it's created by a company, that should remind you that the purpose of this colony was to make money. These people were coming over here to try to find gold, and when they didn't find gold, then they started growing crops, and they eventually settled on tobacco. But because when they first came over, so many of them were lazy and thought that it would be very easy and, oh, America's going to be a simple life, they never planted food. So they almost starved. Over 2/3 of the original settlers died in the very first year, but the colony did end up surviving. Virginia House of Burgesses is the first representative government in America. A representative government is a government where people choose other people by voting to run the government and make the laws and the rules that are going to keep people in line. So this is the first instance of a colonial government, and it's really important that you understand that it was a representative government. People in Virginia were electing, their neighbors or people who they respected and having them make the laws and make sure everything ran well in the colony. This is an important idea that we're going to see continued later on in American history. The second colony that we're going to talk about is the Plymouth Bay Colony, and this was in Massachusetts in 1620. This was founded by the Puritans. The Puritans were very strict and very religious. And while they came to make money, their main goal for coming to America was for the freedom to worship their religion, because at this time it was not allowed for them to worship their religion in England. When they arrived, their government was called the Mayflower Compact, and once again, this is called a representative government. These are phrases that you will definitely see on the regents, and they're seen by the people who write the regents as the beginnings of democracy and representative government, where people choose someone to vote for them. These are the beginnings of that in America. Finally, we're going to talk about the economy. So one of the reasons why England would start a colony is because there are all kinds of resources over here in North America that England wanted but didn't have. So you send people over and they settle. And then from here, the people living in places like Boston, New York, Philadelphia, and Charleston would farm or cut down trees or get whale oil, and all of these goods would be sent back to England. And then England would take those goods often and either sell them back to the colonies or take them down to Africa, where they would be traded for enslaved Africans who would then be brought over to America and forced to do the work to create more of the resources. So the things that the regents want you to know about mercantilism is that it is an economic system, that the colonies provide raw materials to the mother country, the mother country manufactures goods, and this limits colonial manufacturing. So what that means is, in New York, they are not going to turn the beaver pelts into hats. They're going to get the beaver pelts, send them back to England. England will turn them into hats and then ship them back and sell them to America. And this is a way for the mother country, England, to make a lot of money and also keep the power over the colonies. You can see why the people who live in North America might eventually want to get rid of this system. Another way of thinking about it is in this picture. So over here you see England makes the clothing, makes the hats with the cotton and the beaver pelt that is sold from the 13 colonies. So here is a chart you can look at to figure out the relationship between these two parties. And the last thing we need to consider when thinking about mercantilism is the creation of the slave trade and the introduction of the idea of slavery based on race. Prior to this, slavery had existed in the world, but starting in the 1500s, when Europe starts to recognize their ability to take enslaved Africans and bring them to the New World and then use that labor to create raw materials, which they ship back to England or Europe and create more manufactured goods, created what we call the triangle trade. And this is probably one of the most horrendous acts in global history and in American history, and it's something that we're going to continue to deal with throughout our history class. So once again, you should now be able to answer these 4 essential questions. Why did people come to the colonies? Where were the earliest colonies located and why? How did settlers organize their governments? And how were the colonies and mother countries economically connected? If you have any more questions, please just email me or ask me in class. Reminder, there's going to be a quiz on this information this Friday. Make sure to complete the questions below this screencast on the website. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.